Long before America became loud, long before cities learned how to glow through the night, there were mornings that arrived without announcement. They came quietly, without urgency, without expectation. In small settlements spread across wide land, people woke not because the world demanded it, but because the light simply changed outside their windows. These early American lives did not begin with ambition. They began with habit. The same wooden floors felt under bare feet. The same doors opened with familiar sounds. The same air carried the smell of earth and smoke and yesterday's work. There was no sense that history was being made. That idea had not yet arrived. In these places, days did not feel important. They were not counted. They were not remembered. They passed the way shadows move across a wall, slowly, without asking to be noticed. Men and women rose from sleep at nearly the same hour each day, not because a clock commanded them, but because their bodies had learned the rhythm of light and dark. Children stirred beside them, still half lost in dreams, already surrounded by a world that would remain mostly unchanged throughout their lives. Outside, paths pressed into the ground by countless steps waited patiently. They had been formed long before anyone could remember, and they would remain long after these walkers were gone. No one wondered who had walked them first. No one asked if they might disappear. Work began without discussion. Tools were lifted from the same places where they had rested the night before. Hands knew their shapes. The work itself offered no surprises. It did not improve, it did not worsen. It simply continued. Fields stretched outward, neither generous nor cruel. They responded the same way they always had, to care, to weather, to time. The people working them did not expect more than they had received before. They did not imagine different futures. They trusted repetition. Meals were simple, and so were the moments around them. Food was eaten because it was time to eat, not because it was an event. There was little conversation, not because of sadness, but because words were unnecessary. Silence was familiar. It had always been present. The hours between morning and evening moved slowly, almost politely. There was no rush to finish. There was no reward for speed. Every task would return tomorrow, waiting patiently, exactly as it had today. Children learned by watching. They did not need instruction. They absorbed the movements, the pauses, the quiet certainty that life would look much like this again and again. They did not yet know to question it. As the sun shifted in the sky, the light softened. Shadows grew longer, and work slowed naturally. No signal was required. The body understood when to stop. Evenings arrived gently. Firelight replaced daylight, and rooms filled with the calm glow of routine. The same seats were taken. The same corners were occupied. The same tiredness settled into bones. Night followed without drama. The dark did not frighten. It was expected. It brought rest, not mystery. Outside, the land fell silent in a way that felt permanent, as though it had always been waiting for this moment. And so the first day ended, not as a beginning, but as a continuation. One more quiet day added to many before it, with no reason to believe tomorrow would be any different. Morning returned the way it always did, without urgency, without intention. The light crept slowly across the land, not to announce a new beginning, but to repeat what had already happened countless times before. The houses stood exactly where they had been the day before, and the paths waited with the same quiet patience. Inside those homes, people woke gradually. There was no sudden movement, no alarm, no sense of missing something important. Sleep released them only when it was ready to do so. They stretched slowly, as if their bodies remembered yesterday,
and saw no reason to rush into today. The air inside the rooms felt unchanged. It carried the scent of wood, of earth tracked in long ago, of smoke that had settled into walls over years. The same sounds filled the space, soft footsteps, faint creaks, breathing that did not hurry. Outside, animals stirred in familiar ways. They did not react to novelty because nothing was new. Their routines matched the humans who cared for them, slow and dependable. Breakfast appeared with little ceremony. It was not prepared to be enjoyed. It was prepared because the body required it. No one wondered what else might be eaten. No one imagined a different taste. The meal existed as part of the day's structure, not as a moment worth remembering. Work followed naturally, as though it had never stopped. Tools were taken up again, and hands resumed motions that felt older than memory. These movements required no thought. They existed beneath awareness, like breathing. Time passed, but no one marked it. There were no minutes, no hours, only the sense of before and after. The sun's position told enough of the story, and even that was rarely noticed. Children moved nearby, quietly learning the boundaries of the world. They did not ask what else existed beyond it. They did not know to be curious about difference. This life filled all available space. The land offered little variation. Seasons changed slowly, and even those changes felt expected, almost rehearsed. People adapted without complaint because there was nothing else to compare against. Midday arrived without recognition. It did not interrupt the work. It simply continued it under slightly brighter light. The warmth of the sun settled into shoulders and backs, encouraging a slower pace rather than greater effort. Voices were few. When they appeared, they carried no urgency. They existed only to serve a purpose, and then they returned to silence. Thoughts drifted easily here. There was time for them, but little need. The future was not a place anyone visited often. It existed only as a vague extension of the present, unchanging and dependable. As the day progressed, tiredness arrived gradually. It was not resisted. It was welcomed as proof that the day had followed its expected shape. When work ended, it did so naturally. No signal, no announcement. Tools returned to their places, ready to wait again. The light began to fade, and with it the sense of effort. The world softened into evening, the way it always did, calm and predictable. Nothing had happened worth recording, yet everything that mattered had occurred exactly as it should. And tomorrow it would all begin again, not as something new, but as something familiar. Evening settled slowly over the land, not as a conclusion, but as a gentle shift in tone. The light did not disappear suddenly. It softened, stretching shadows across fields and walls, reminding everyone that the day was easing into its familiar close. Inside the homes, lamps were lit in the same places they had always been. Their glow filled rooms that held no surprises. The walls reflected years of quiet evenings, absorbing each one without distinction. People gathered without planning. They sat where they usually sat. They faced the same directions. They rested in ways their bodies had learned over time. There was comfort in not choosing. Conversation remained minimal. When words were spoken, they concerned practical matters, things already known, things already accepted. There was no desire to shape stories from the day, because the day had followed a shape already understood. Food was eaten slowly. It tasted as expected. The process of eating felt more important than the meal itself. The routine brought reassurance. Outside, the land grew still. Animals settled into rest. The wind moved gently through open spaces, unchallenged and unremarkable. The night carried no mystery here. It did not hide danger or promise change. It simply arrived, as it always had, covering everything evenly. Children drifted toward sleep naturally. They did not resist it. They did not ask for stories filled with wonder. Sleep was not an escape, but a continuation of calm. Adults followed soon after, not from exhaustion, but from alignment with the day's rhythm. There was no reason to stay awake once the light had gone. Beds received bodies that knew them well. The same positions were taken, the same creaks were heard. The familiarity allowed the mind to rest easily. Dreams came quietly. They mirrored the day's movements, slower and softer. They did not introduce new ideas. They replayed what was already known. Outside, paths and fields rested as well. They waited without expectation, knowing they would be needed again soon. Time moved forward